Hello, and welcome to another Bionicle video. Now, if you've seen any of my other videos, you might have heard me singing the praises of one of my favourite early Bionicle sets, the Boxor. It's a crazy yet ingenious vehicle built for a single purpose, punching Borok. But one thing has always bothered me. Well, two things if you include the weird severed Matoran arm grafted onto the back. Okay, three if you consider that Boxors are built from dead Borok who used to be Matoran themselves. That's just all kinds of wrong, but I'm getting off track. The main thing that bothered me is the deco. See, Muro gave his prototype Boxor a neat paint job to match his own colour scheme. Quite how he managed this while trapped in a rapidly flooding cave in the midst of a Galloc attack remains to be seen, but heck, if I was going out in a blaze of glory, I'd probably do the same. But later on we see plenty of other characters piloting Boxors, yet they all have Muro's colour scheme too. How come? They're riding into battle against overwhelming odds and almost certain doom, but they weren't allowed to customise? Seems a bit unfair, right? Well, I think it's time we corrected this grave injustice. Unfortunately, building a Boxor to represent each of the different villages is no easy feat. A lot of the parts used for the Boxor simply aren't available in the colours we need, like the knob gears, or the foot plates, or even the toes. And the flex hose required for the arms and feet doesn't come cheap either, especially when you get into some of the more obscure and desirable colours. But we shall not be defeated, because unlike Bionicle fans back in 2002 who relied entirely on LEGO to give us the parts we need, nowadays we have plenty of ways to acquire custom parts in a whole range of colours. So we can start off with official pieces, and then much like the scientists of Jurassic Park, we can fill in the gaps with frog DNA, or in this case, custom bricks. Anyway, enough chat. First up, a blue Boxor for Goro. The peaceful fishing village ended up playing a pretty important role in the Borok Wars, being the location where the combined Matoran forces made their last stand. So where better to begin our journey than with a Galcoran Boxor? I imagine this one is what Nuperu's prototype looked like before he painted it, since he used the body of a Galloc for the base of his invention. Most of the blue pieces you can see here are available from official sources, like the Borok body and canopy, but the blue gears and some of the light blue parts are custom. The blue connectors that form the toes do technically exist as genuine LEGO pieces, but they only came in one set, the absurdly rare Ant from the Snap series. I checked Bricklink in the hopes of picking some up, but the piece is so rare that only 3 sellers in the entire world have it for sale. I only need 6 of them. As much as I want to stick with genuine parts, I'm not paying basically $50 for 6 tiny pieces, so custom it is. And while we're on the subject of expensive pieces, the Matoran arm needed to go on the back is almost as challenging to get hold of, especially in the UK, since the McDonald's Matoran promotion didn't see a very wide release outside of America and Australia. So rather than mutilate poor Maku, I used a couple of lift arms to fill in the gap back there. Light blue hooks are also pretty scarce, only coming in one set, the Super Battle Droid from 2002, and even then the set only includes one of the 2 that we need. Regular blue hooks are an option too, of course, since those come with Galley as standard. But if we're using the original Boxor for reference, we need to avoid using the primary Toa colours like red and blue, since the hooks on Nuperu's Boxor are grey instead of black. So ideally we want those lighter blue ones here, even if they are harder to track down. And on the subject of hooks, we'll be needing matching pairs in the rest of the Toa secondary colours too, like orange and lime green. Again, some of these are tricky to get hold of, but at least they exist. Well, except tan, but more on that later. Next up, a green Boxor for Goro. The only Gororan Matoran to be released is Kongu, who unfortunately doesn't quite match the green and lime colour scheme we have to go with when using Levax pieces as a base. My original plan was to replace the orange highlights with turquoise to help tie things together, but turquoise is a pretty uncommon colour that even the custom part creators don't seem particularly keen on providing. In the end, I simply stuck with the classic green and lime used by the other 2001-2002 sets, and I think it works fine. The other option is to replace Kongu with a custom Gororan, using Liwa's mask and the green feet from Levakvar. This removes the need for any turquoise bits, but the obvious downside is that poor Kongu doesn't get to join in the fun. Like the light blue hooks, those lime green hooks only come in one set, Stunt Racetrack from 2002, and again the set only includes one hook, making a pair pretty difficult to get hold of. The green foot panels were challenging to get too, since once again they only come in one set and we need 4 of them. I was tempted to fill in the gaps with custom parts here, but all the substitute pieces ended up being either the wrong shape, the wrong shade of green, or both. I eventually just gave up and imported some genuine bits from Thailand along with some other pieces I needed. Then from the jungles of Goro we moved to the volcanic peaks of Toro for a fire-themed Boxor. Red and orange is an iconic Bionicle colour scheme, used by most of the fire-themed characters, and it works really well for the Boxor too. Those orange hooks are pretty easy to track down for once, coming from the fairly common Nui Rama set, although they do also appear in the Manors. But while the hooks for this one are easy to find, the 4 thin lift arms that the arms attach to are a bit more problematic, at least in the UK. Even though they came in 10 sets, which is basically 9 more appearances than most of the other parts needed here, their desirability seems to have pushed the price up. Unfortunately, our only official Takoran, Jala, doesn't quite fit the colour scheme, but I've taken some inspiration from the regular Boxor and added a few yellow bits to help tie things together. Of course, there's nothing stopping us from fully committing to Jalla's colour scheme and going all out with the yellow. This Boxor looks pretty crazy, like McDonald's exploded all over it, which I guess is appropriate considering how most of the Matoran were released. And believe it or not, this one is possible to complete without any custom parts whatsoever. It's almost like LEGO wanted us to build it. Well, some of the little pins are custom, but the rest is all official LEGO. It took a while to track all the pieces down since they come from so many different sets. The end result is definitely worth the extra hassle though. The two fire-themed Boxors look really good together, and something about the crazy McDonald's one really appeals to me. I guess one could be for Jalla and the other for Takua. Then from fire we turn to ice with a frosty Kokoran Boxor. We never saw much of Kokoro during the Boxor War, but it's safe to assume the villagers there had their own battles to fight. And what better way to fend off the Korak swarm than with an Arctic camo Boxor? White and light grey seems the obvious choice here to match Kopaka. Unfortunately, the shade of light grey used for 2002 Bionicle sets has long been out of production, which means most of the light grey pieces you see here are the newer light bluish grey. The newer grey isn't an exact match for Kopaka and co, but Matoran has his own colour scheme anyway, with sand blue instead. I sprinkled in a few sand blue highlights to honour Motoro, but the blue parts and the grey parts are so similar it's kind of hard to notice them. Oh, and those grey hooks come in a whole bunch of sets, so like their orange counterparts, they're pretty easy to track down. Next up we have Pokoro. The desert village fell pretty quickly in the Borok Wars, so a Pokoran Boxor wouldn't have seen much use. But a few of the villagers did manage to make it out, and I'm sure they would have wanted to honour their fallen comrades with a custom Boxor. Unfortunately, it's also the hardest of the bunch to pull off. If you saw my shiny Toa video, you might recall that custom brown Toa are basically impossible to create, at least with official pieces. And it's the same story here. The shade of brown used in 2002 sadly didn't last much longer, falling out of use just a few years later, leaving us with only a few of the pieces we need. We got the body in brown, and the canopy, but not much else. LEGO's tan colour is still going strong though, so if we mix tan pieces with black, it gives us a Boxor that's perfect for Hafu. Well, almost perfect. Unfortunately the punching hooks don't come in tan, so I've had to switch them out for Pahatu's foot pads, which work almost as well. I went with dark orange for the highlight colour here to match Huki, but I still prefer Hafu in the driver's seat. And finally we're heading to Onukoro for a subterranean Boxor. Since Nupru himself is Onukoran, I guess the standard Boxor would fill this particular gap, but that's not much fun. Originally I planned to do a purple Boxor for Onupu, but even custom bricks can't fill in all the pieces we need. So where does that leave us? Well, how about silver? Black and silver is still faithful, especially when you consider that Nupru himself switches out his orange parts for silver in his Toa form. And Toa Nupru still fits too. Well, mostly. But it's a testament to the crazy posability of the later Bionicle figures that something like this is even close to possible. So that's the 6 villagers covered, but we're not done quite yet. How about this Shadow Boxor? I've already covered this one in a separate video, so be sure to check that out if you like Boxors as much as I do. Originally I built this one for Makuta in his Matoran form, but as a bunch of you pointed out in the comments, our evil little friend Okumu works just as well. Then we have a pure black Boxor. It's basically the shadow one, but even shadowier. All black is undeniably pretty striking, but I think I prefer it with the red highlights. Or how about an X-ray Boxor, built with as many clear pieces as I could get my hands on? Even the pilot has a clear how to fit the theme. I really like how this one turned out, and it looks amazing with a bit of backlighting. And on a more personal level, it's extra nostalgic for me since I had a bunch of clear plastic toys growing up. It was a common gimmick back then for toy makers to re-release toys in clear plastic to sneak in some extra sales, so an X-ray Boxor was definitely something I would have picked up. And on that note, our tour of custom boxes must sadly come to an end. Hopefully I've done enough to secure the title of King of the Boxors, but if you wish to challenge me for that throne, well, you know where to find me. At the very least, I've perfected the ability to build these things in my sleep, although I'm not sure how useful that skill is in practice. Anyway, let me know which one was your favourite, and feel free to share your inspiration for other recoloured vehicles, especially if you've built any yourself. So until next time, thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more Bionicle videos. Ta-ta!